The evidence strongly suggests that Jeanette Chrisman knew her killer.
There really is not a strong tradition in America of strangers coming in and killing babysitters. Babysitters killing small children, yes. But the stranger on babysitter story just doesn't connect up with a widespread, real social fear.
What the babysitter and the man upstairs seems to be about is this warning about this kind of responsibility. If you're taking this responsibility, you have to take it seriously. So you have this voice that calls her up on the phone and almost like a conscience asks, have you checked the children? And she hasn't checked the children, and that's one of the reasons why she doesn't know that they've been murdered.
I think it makes more sense to look at it in a simple way and say the babysitter is dealing with her own anxieties of being potentially the cause of the children's death. The killer upstairs is the killer upstairs for her.
The tragic case of Jeanette Chrisman only goes to prove Bill Ellis's point, that our portrayal of the man upstairs is incorrect. And that's because the truth is more terrifying than we can ever imagine. Jeanette Chrisman knew her killer, and if it's true that her killer was Mueller, as so many in Colombia have suggested, then the man tormenting her that fateful night wasn't any stranger. So now we go from Columbia, Missouri, to Chicago in the 1980s, from the small town to the big city. For some, it is a loss of innocence, and nothing speaks to that loss more than clowns. We used to think of clowns as fairly happy characters. Yes, sometimes they were sad or hapless, but ultimately they were harmless caricatures. Of course, clown faces were exaggerated and garish, but that's because of the far distances between the audience and the ring. It wasn't a clown's fault. Or was it? Before modern times, the clown, or more appropriately the jester, was considered a mischievous trickster whose special role allowed them to mock nobility. Jesters served to entertain, but it wasn't all smiles. These clowns had a mean streak, and they played it to the hilt. But what was it about the clowns of today that turned them into something evil?
Breakfast! I'm hungry!
Some believe it was when we brought clowns out of the big top and into our homes via birthday parties and TV that things really began to change.
We see you here as Bozo. Who are you really?
Had that suspicious gleam in the eye been there all along? Did we finally just put two and two together to realize that clowns were creepy? Or even worse, dangerous?
News at 5.
Chicago police warn parents about a man dressed as a clown who is approaching children.
Police say a clown tried to lure boys into his pickup truck last Tuesday evening. Police have issued 2 community alerts regarding the clown sighting near some South Side schools as well as some West Side schools.
No one can say for sure where in Chicago it happened first, or even when. But they were out there, snatching kids off the streets. They trolled playgrounds and schoolyards. Sometimes they used balloons or candy to lure the gullible ones. But ask anyone who's seen them, and they'll all tell you the same thing. It was the white van they saw first, and then that face behind the wheel, painted white with a maniacal smile. We called them the Killer Clowns, and they only wanted one thing: to kidnap kids, just like us.
Police say that the suspect wears clown makeup, a wig, and sometimes he carried balloons. The latest pair of incidents occurred near playgrounds at 83rd and Mackinac.
They were running out of the playground area.
To prey on children at this time, right around the time where they want to go out and do trick-or-treating. It's unfortunate. We should emphasize that nothing has happened. No child has been hurt. But certainly these incidents that have been near children is making it very uneasy.
2008, this was one of the reported sightings in South Mackinac of one of the theoretical clown abductions. Where apparently he was hiding in the playground with some balloons.
Or he's in a van, or he's in a truck. I mean, no adult said they saw this. Something was going on with these children to feel the need to alert adults.
Doing a documentary?
Yeah, we are. Do you believe that really happened?
Yeah, oh sure.
Why do you believe that happened?
Well, people told me, that they had actually seen it.
Was it just one incident, or was it...
No, it was like a couple weeks or
Uh-huh.
a month or something like that. It was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever catch the guy?
I'm not sure. I think they did because it stopped. Definitely was a true incident.
Uh-huh.
So, he believes
You believe that?
It was real.
I think there could possibly have been a clown here.
It's hard to.
A white van, and the guy had a mask
Mm-hmm.
of a clown. One of our friend's daughters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she was holding on like for dear life to the fence.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you believe it really happened?
I believe so. We have tons and tons of pedophiles in this community. I always log on to.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Dressing as a clown?
Yeah?
That's a little extreme, don't you think?
No,
But you never saw the clown.
no. But we saw people that acted like that person trying to tell the kids. I saw them right in the store, and I warned the store owner. I like for people to hear the truth and not a lie. Now I don't want to be.
Walking away was hard not to believe that there must be some truth to this. Could all these people really be wrong? Maybe our fear of clowns isn't just in our heads.
Coulrophobia is a fear of clowns. It's so widespread now that, everybody knows that people are afraid of clowns. Everybody knows that something's up with clowns. And the last couple of decades have just been confirmation of everything they ever feared.
But what's even more disturbing is that these phantom clowns didn't just appear in 2008. There was a similar sighting 17 years previously, in the fall of 1991. From the number of alleged sightings coming from practically all over Chicago, police are theorizing there may be more than one phony clown roaming the streets.
This is a comment. I seen the same van with a clown driving when we was on the West Side playing, and I can recall the van stopping in the alley and the clown trying to lure me to the van. That scared me worse than living in Cabrini Green projects.
The mention of Cabrini Green was telling. It had been one of Chicago's most notorious slums, where kids face rampant poverty and violence on a daily basis. But how does a kid process these overwhelming societal issues that are just too big to fix? Have you ever, heard of any talk about any scary place on your block, place nobody went to?
Every block's a scary block. Someone's shooting and killing out here.
You guys think clowns are scary?
Clowns?
Yeah.
Killer clowns.
Killer clowns.
We've got a real shot here, Bernadette. The entire community starts attributing the daily horrors of their lives to a mythical figure.
Sometimes we create monsters. Sometimes we just need to put a face on the fear.
Aren't you gonna say hello?
This is where there was another series of clown sightings back in 91. They called this clown sighting the Homia clown sighting.
Back in the early 90s, there was a popular show on In Living Color. Huge character in there, Homie the Clown.
Now, let's show them how homie gets back at Mr. Establishment. Sure.
I mean, this is only one of many, many places all over Chicago.
There was a real citywide scare. The Chicago police were being called. There were reports in the news.
Isaiah Thompson was a local reporter who grew up in Chicago and wrote about the clowns that seemed to be lurking on every corner.
Somehow, I don't know that anyone knows how, this whole city, especially this whole public school network of thousands and thousands of kids all believe the same thing. So it seems like this larger force of nature that had sort of
You can't have them on my bed, I'm gonna tell you that. So don't you start pushing them out on my bed.
Was that Chicago had an even earlier clown scare. There was another clown scare phenomenon.
I think you're wanting daddy, that's what I think. Just keep wandering around calling.
In Boston.
And I'm already here, so you're not calling for me.
Stephen King, you think Poltergeist. No, that started 82 Poltergeist, 86 for It. Which is all before any of that.
It's easy to see how Poltergeist could have helped spread a clown scare. And of course, Stephen King's It.
I'll drive you crazy and kill you all. And every nightmare you've ever had, I am your worst dream come true.
But the fact that the 1981 scare preceded these cinematic killer clowns was telling. This wasn't just kids watching some movie, not when this fear was everywhere.
Clowns appear in California, 1967, Newark, 1980, Boston, Providence, Omaha, Phoenix, Arizona, 1985, Chicago, Galveston, Texas, 1992, Washington, Maryland, Scotland, 1991, throughout a large portion of Latin America, from Mexico to South America in the mid-90s. The question of how it's being spread is a very interesting one, because you have an age group which doesn't have an enormous amount of contact, and especially in a pre-internet time. Elementary schools communicating with students at other elementary schools on the other side of town is very unlikely. How it's transmitted is really one of the most intriguing, perhaps unsolved mysteries about it.
All over the world, kids were seeing killer clowns, but it could have been any monster. Zombies, vampires, witches. Why clowns? Maybe our fear points to an even larger issue. Maybe it was the clown's loss of innocence that made them that much more scary, because it spoke to our own loss. For those born into a generation of stranger danger, where missing kids appeared on every milk carton, clowns represented a world that had turned almost evil overnight. And that's because it's here in Chicago, where the notion of killer clowns became a reality.
Police found the decomposed remains of 3 bodies. They suspect there are several more bodies buried here.
And the most evil of them all was Pogo, the alter ego of one of the most prolific serial killers in all of history, John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was a sadistic serial killer who brutally slayed 33 young men between 1972 and 1978 in the Chicago suburbs. Though many have portrayed Gacy as an actual killer clown, the truth behind his demented